What is happening, budget builders, and welcome back to the Firebird Rescue. This is a 1978 Formula Firebird that had been forgotten in a field for over 21 years. We rescued this thing, got it dragged out. We were able to get that 350 fired off and running again. We threw some brand new rubber on this car and we got it cruising down the road. Now, to say that 350 is quick would be a complete lie. It is anemic, to say the least. But in today's video, we're going to throw some power adders to that 350 and see if we can make this thing a true hot rod. Well, this is difficult with the grill in place. Originally, this car would have been powered by a 305 Chevrolet, but at some point of time, somebody swapped in a 1972 350, so we do make a little bit more power over stock, but not much. And part of that is it is still running the entire stock top end, which includes this little 2-barrel. To start with, we will address that with a fresh 4-barrel intake. With breathing in more air, we have a very, very restrictive exhaust on this car. We need to help it a little bit. It definitely has a really neat sound, but you can tell it's restricted. It's actually just cast iron stock manifolds into a single collector and then back single into the muffler where it splits off into our duals here. And every bit of that exhaust is tiny. And that just tells me we're not getting a good fresh of breath air here. And it's not tooting back out the other end very well either. Really quick before we actually go and start tearing into this thing, I do want to go ahead and get a baseline 0 to 60, or at least based off of the speedometer that we have here. It won't be crazy accurate. I don't have any of the fancy draggy things or anything. Just got a stopwatch that Dad's gonna click when we get ready to go, and we'll see a rough idea of what this thing puts down. 1, 2, 3. Okay, wait, let me. I'm gonna load it up a little bit. You ready? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Trixie. Woohoo! It's awesome. Dang, this thing's a hot rod. 11.76. 1, 2, 3. Woohoo! 11:35. 0 to 60 in over 11 seconds. When I joked this thing was anemic, I didn't mean that bad. We have a lot of improving that we can do. Let's go ahead, pull the distributor, pull the intake, and start freshening it up from there. Heavy hood. We're gonna save some time doing that. So what's odd is here we have the factory mark. Here we have a homemade. I wonder, this is probably the balancer off of the 78 here on the 72 maybe. I'm gonna go ahead and just mark. I'm gonna mark both of them. It'll be a little fun to see. Now we know with most of your Chevy 350s, base timing is 8 degrees before top dead center. So that's what we're gonna be looking for. Obviously we have to pull the distributor right out and reset it anyways, but I just wanna make sure we're not way off or anything to begin with here. timing marks look good. Advanced with no problem, so we know that's not the issue, and that's not why this car is slow. This car is just slow because it's slow. I have a feeling automatic, you know, crazy highway gear in this thing, and 350 that we're about to liven up. Yeah. If that breaks the hoses, then they needed new ones anyways. Okay. We're here in the #1 cylinder. What we're looking for is those valves to be closed, which are coming closed here, so we know that we're coming up on the compression stroke. And we're gonna watch as the cylinder comes all the way up. Smidge more, smidge more, smidge more, smidge more, smidge more, a little bit more, all right. Closed, piston all the way up, and lined up with our #1. That's all you gotta do. All right, here you go. Just hold it. All right. Wow. Well, we got everything cleaned up. That motor looks awesome. Now, of course, there's more that I would like to do, like a cam and stuff. The problem is we're looking at some pretty tough restrictions here, especially these are the 882 heads. You know, they're not very great heads. You can't put a ton of power through stuff, and once you do, you start having issues. And without actually yanking this out and going crazy. Plus, we want to keep all the nice things that this car has, as well as AC and everything. And so we're just trying to hop it up, make it a little happier, not quite so pitiful. And so we don't want to go too crazy. But what we had was actually this really cool old school C3B Edelbrock intake. And this is kind of neat because it fits on everything. Now the problem is, because of all the crazy bracketry that this car has, this won't work. I wanted it to. We had pulled this out of a barn years ago and we have nothing in it, and it's really cool, but it's just not going to work for us in this application. Thankfully, Edelbrock does make an intake now that actually will work with everything that we need to, and it's less than $200, which I wasn't wanting to spend right now, but it's what we got to do. And so we'll go ahead and get it on the way. It'll be here in the morning. In the meantime, let's go ahead and start pulling our manifold so we can start working on this exhaust. Well, there we go. Some nice stock exhaust. As you can see, being a 78, probably had a catalytic converter right here that is no longer in place. But that is some small, restrictive, unhappy exhaust. What sucks is, yes, it did sound pretty good, but I think we can make it even better, hopefully. And these are our marketplace special headers. Are these specifically for a Firebird? I don't know. The pictures looked the same. They were $80. They have this really cool crinkle finish, that heat coat that I think is gonna look awesome on there. And they're gonna be so much better than that if they work. So let's go give them a try. Wow, that's about as smooth as it gets. That is crazy, the amount of room there is. And what's cool is you still have all the factory heat coating for all the wires, so we don't have to worry about the starter wires. As you can see, one little floor hole, super solid everywhere else. Just one little spot that we will need to address when we have the carpet out. The heat will burn the spider webs off.
Got a line at 7.5 inches. Just get me some marks.
So what we're doing here, you can see we've got a inexpensive tube kit, which it was supposed to be aluminized. It's not. Oh well. But what we're gonna go ahead and do is a lot of times we mess with 6 cylinders with the V8. The last one we did just straight out of both headers on our Comet, which gave it a cool sound. We want a little bit better, raspier, more even sound. And so we're actually gonna go ahead and make an X pipe now. So that's what Dad is setting up for. So he's marking our lines here. He's always got these creative little jigs that are, they work out perfect. I mean, this is great. And this is where it gets fun. Now, I've always wanted one of these. These things are pretty expensive. Nice ones are. This is just a cheapie. Even so, probably this is pre-Harbor Freight. It might be a Harbor Freight one, but it's old. But I picked it up from a friend that had cleaned off a property. We were able to pick this thing up for, what I give him, 50 bucks or something for it? 40 bucks, 50 bucks. Threw a new blade on it, had to make some adjustments, but this hopefully will make exhaust building life much better. What a cool tool. Oh, hey.
How you doing in there?
And of course, we're using some Flow Monster single chambers like we stuck on the Galaxy. I think these have just a great sound. These are actually manufactured by Flowmaster, which are one of both Dad and my favorite mufflers. They just have a great sound, and so do these. And so there's our, this is kind of a tight floor under here, so we're having to tuck everything in kind of crazy. But I think this will work out pretty well. There we go. What a difference. Obviously, you've got your manifolds there. The headers take up a lot of room, so that's why this is kicked back. There's not much exhaust here, but there's a lot going on. That was pretty complicated, figuring out all the tips and everything. Maybe we went a little overboard. It's not perfect, but I think it's going to be really, really neat, and hopefully it'll have a good sound. With that exhaust done, here is our new intake. Of course, this is the Edelbrock intake manifold, and what's kind of neat, let me show you this part number here. It's a 2701. It's less than $200 through O'Reilly's. And what's awesome is it has all of the things that you need to mount your alternator, your throttle bracket, and your AC. And so we can put this on here. It's gonna look pretty sharp. I kind of wanted to keep this, I don't want to say sleeper, so I was just gonna keep it stock looking and paint it black, but I don't want to paint that intake black. But let's go ahead and get this thing thrown back down on the top of that motor. You see, we've already gone ahead and tacked in our end gaskets here. Now, I know a lot of people don't like to use them. These did have the holes drilled for them, so I went ahead and installed them anyways. But I gooped up the bottom, and I am going to goop up the top, so we don't have to worry about any kind of leaking. And then, of course, something that's aggravating to deal with is the fuel we use today and how much heat has to do with how well a car runs. So what I want to do is actually block off this heat transfer. This is basically to use exhaust gases to heat up the bottom side of that intake, which helped with leaded fuel, and we don't need that anymore. So as you can see, the hole's a little bit bigger than the head there. And so I'm going to take some exhaust gasket. I'm going to kind of goop it up. And then I have these little aluminum plates that I've cut out. And they fit right there. And that'll clamp down in between and prevent exhaust gases from coming through. Back on with our intake. Now, starting from the middle and working our way out, I'm going to torque the manifold here to about 33 foot-pounds. With the intake back on, we need to cover up that valve train. These, since we're not keeping it kind of stock looking, old tin valve covers aren't the prettiest. But we've got this really neat old school set. These came on actually a turbo 350 we had way back, and we actually got rid of the motor, but we still have these really neat valve covers. The aluminum look is cool. I think it's a little too much on this, so what we're gonna go ahead and do, and let's get these cleaned up, and then I wanna go ahead and wrinkle coat, black them, and then we will sand off the fins. I think it's gonna be a pretty cool look on this motor here. As we drop down in here, you just want to kick back a bit and then let it rock to line up with your oil pump and all. We'll see where our number one lines up, and this will plug in. You see where I put the mark right here, so we are engaged with the oil pump and back down where it was. Here you can see the little brackets, extenders that Dad made here from the manifold, from the header here, so that we can still run our AC. Now it is dry enough to put on here, but we need to wait about 48 hours before we can finish scuffing back down our fins. But that's kind of the plan, but pretty happy with the engine base so far. I think it almost has an OEM look, except they're aluminum. Intake looks good. Headers look great. Now we can put the carburetor on here in just a second. And here is our Holley 600. This was brand new in 1994. This was what was on top of the Thunderbird. And we had issues with it overflowing. Well, knowing it was the wrong carburetor anyways, we scratched it. But spent a good bit of time on it, tried to rebuild it. Hopefully it takes this kit, it may not, but I wanna go ahead and let's get it tightened down. We'll get our vacuum hooked up for the booster. Let's go to see if this thing will fire off before we go any farther. Well, as good as the Holly looks on there, I just don't think it's going to do. Even with the float height closed off to the point where it's not barely running in the fuel air mixture screws, vacuum looks really good on it. It still just does not atomize good. It dumps fuel. I mean, the inside of the carburetor was basically brand new. We just cleaned it, put a kit in it, made sure everything looked good. And I don't know, that's why we took it off the Thunderbird, because it had issues. Thought we could maybe dial in on them a little bit, but my theory stands that Hollies are great out of the box. Once they get some age on them, I don't know, there's not much you can do with it. So whether I want to or not, I think we've got about 6 Hollies sitting on the shelf over there. We're probably gonna get an Edelbrock to put on this thing. Our loaner, little 600 CFM Edelbrock here. Let's see if this one's any happier. Sounds right. Wow, that's so much better. That's what it's supposed to sound like. So snappy. Lots of really good condensation, which we weren't hardly having before, and that just tells you, condensation is a sign of a healthy motor. Let's pull this thing out of the shop before we pass out. That's what fell down in the fender. Remember, and I heard it, and we hadn't been able to find it. We're coming around that turn, I heard bing! We'll go for a spin real quick.
Let's do it.
This is it's a lot different car. You are darn straight. Sorry, neighbors. Oh. Bradley window. That was just goose in it spinning tires. We're gonna have to put posse in this thing now. Oh, it sounds good. That's what this car should sound like.
It's better uphill than it was downhill before.
Yeah, that wasn't even in the four. That was just a 2-barrel. I wasn't even in the quads there. Dang. You driving? Yes, we will be doing the interior next, so don't worry. It's amazing what a carburetor will do.
Yeah.
Well, I guess in a 4-barrel and headers and full exhaust and all that stuff too, but you know what I mean. What you think?
Yeah, that's good. It's a different car.
Wow, what a different car. I am ready to see a number difference. Obviously, we're just doing it with our phone, you know. This is just for fun. I'm feeling a little roadkill though. I feel like we probably should have washed this first. That's not normally our style to go doing modifications without cleaning stuff up. You can tell we have washed the car, and you'll see that in probably the next video, and we'll be redoing the interior. We have a full interior for this thing that we're gonna be doing that will make this much nicer to drive. We wanted to have a little bit of fun with it though. But with that being said, I'm gonna let it cool down a bit. Let's cover the motor up. I wanna go ahead and wash this engine bay. And then of course for aerodynamics, because that's gonna affect us a lot, we wanna get the hood put back on here. There's some of our interior. All right, I guess it's time to see if it made any difference. A few $100s worth of performance parts. You know, we pieced some of this together over time. Inexpensive headers, did have an inexpensive intake, and then obviously we have the carburetor on there, miscellaneous exhaust pieces, and those inexpensive mufflers. Let's find out what happened.
1, 2, 3.
Woo! It's almost as fast as it was stock. 3. 1, 2, 3.
That first pass was 8.6.
That's about as good as it's gonna get. Well, with the lack of traction that this car is now getting, combined with that automatic, we did have a big improvement. I did a little bit of research and it looks like real test, the 305 4-speed version of this car did 0 to 60 in 10.1 seconds. The automatic did it in at about 11.1 seconds. So with that with that 350, with the 2-barrel on top, we were slower initially, and now we are quite a bit faster. Like I said, with just a few $100s of modifications that we were able to do here by ourselves. It's not crazy performance stuff, and I think we can dial it in even more. I want to fix on the car quite a bit before we go too crazy. We do have a 4-speed that we might just put in this car, and it obviously needs some kind of track lock or posi traction because it is just one wheel peeling as soon as you lay into it, which is, I mean, it wouldn't break the tires loose before, so I'll give it, other than on the gravel, obviously. So I'll give it to it. This thing is a blast. It is a ton of fun. And it was sitting in a field for over 20 years, but that is gonna wrap it up for this episode. I really do hope you all have enjoyed the rescue to this point, are excited to see what is to come with this build and our other rescues we currently have going and the ones here in the near future. And if you are, be sure to subscribe button, notification bell to keep up with our uploads. And if you have been a part of the channel, we appreciate it so incredibly much. Dad and I have such a blast bringing these things back to life, but that's gonna wrap it up. Peace out and catch you all on the flip side.